Hello guys, welcome to another edition to the 5-Minute Friday series, and in this episode we're going to be looking at how we can create the CSS Box-Shadow effect in 5 minutes or less. Alright guys, so as you can probably guess from these images, the CSS Box-Shadow property can be used to give block elements or boxes a drop shadow, and in some cases even an inner shadow to give it a cool effect, and can also give it a 3D look. So let's dive into VS Code now and look at the CSS Box-Shadow property in action. Right guys, so we're inside VS Code and we're inside a folder called CSS Box-Shadow, and I've created a really basic document layout here, and then inside the body I've got a H1 with some inline styling, which you can see here in the browser, and then underneath this I've got a class or a div of the class of boxes container, which houses these 9 boxes inside it, which all have their own individual class. And the way I've laid this out is I've just used display grid, so I've got a display grid and grid template columns of repeat 3 1 fr. Now the way this episode is going to go is that I'm going to apply the box shadow to each of these boxes in the different ways and values of the box shadow, just to show you guys some of the common ways they're used. So without further ado, we'll start with box 1, and we're just going to say box shadow, and this is pretty much the CSS box shadow in its simplest use, and all we need to do is just apply 2 values here, and what this does is just specify the horizontal shadow and the vertical shadow. Now for box 2 we can get one better than this. We can add a bit of blur to the shadow instead of having this sharp direct look. So I'm just going to duplicate box 1, grab box 2, and to add a blur we just need a 3rd value, and I'm just going to say 5 pixels, and you can see in the browser now that the shadow has a nice blur to it, which looks a lot better in my opinion. Now you may have noticed by default when we apply a box shadow the automatic color is black, but we can affect this too and have any color we like. So box 3, let's say we have a box, or we have a color of red. You can apply hex here or RGBA, but if you look in the browser here now the color is red. Now what you may have also noticed is that the box shadow appears on the bottom right, but we can pretty much make this appear anywhere we like around the box. So I'm just going to duplicate this, and let's say we want this to be in the top left. All we need to do is just use negatives for the first 2 value, or the horizontal and vertical. And if you're looking in the browser now, box 4 has a shadow in the top left instead of the top right. Now for box 5, let's say we wanted this shadow of top left and the bottom right to be all the way around box 5. We can actually do that with using our trusty comma. So I'm just going to grab box 5, and then underneath this first one here we're going to use a comma, and we're going to say 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 5 pixels for the blur, and then say the color for red. And then if we look in the browser, you can see now box 5 has shadow on the top left and the bottom right, but you can see here that the shadow doesn't actually go all the way around. There's a bit of a gap between the edges here. Now if we wanted the shadow to go all the way around, like for box 6 for example, all we need to do is just grab box 6, and to have the shadow go all the way around, all we need to do is just remove any unit of measurement for the first 2 values, or the vertical and horizontal, and you can see now the shadow goes all the way around without leaving a little gap. Now another optional value is spread, which essentially just increases the size of the shadow. So to apply the spread value, I'm just going to grab box 7, and then after the blur value all we need to do is just add a value for the spread, and you can see now the shadow is spread by 15 pixels. Now a couple of bonus values are the inset and the hover effect. So let's just say we wanted the shadow to be on the inside instead of the outside. All we need to do is grab box 8, and then after the color here just write in here inset, and you can see now the shadow is on the inside instead of the outside. Now we can apply this box shadow to the hover effect, so we're going to do that with box 9, and we're going to say box 9 hover, and if we go over to box 9 you can see now that it has a hover effect and the shadow appears when we hover over this, and we can do this for the outside too. So now the shadow appears on the outside when we hover this, so it kind of gives us like a 3D look to it. And those are pretty much the basic values and some of the common ways you'll see a box shadow used, guys. But that'll be it for this video, guys. If you did like the episode, please hit the like button and please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next Friday in the next 5 Minute Fridays episode.